There is a professional and ethical dilemma that occurs when the subjective urge arises for a counselor to disclose that they can relate to their client's struggle on a personal level, as they are too in recovery. What are the clinical and therapeutic advantages or disadvantages of self-disclosure of their own recovery in the field of alcohol and substance abuse counseling? There is a decision-making process and implementation that will be explained in this presentation, whereby the counselor can make a responsible, ethical decision based on criteria that will be the most advantageous to the client. Who would be affected by the decision to self-disclose? The client. The client.
And the counselor.
Right. And the counselor.
And both.
Both would be affected. Right? Both. There would be an effect on both. Okay?
The client is not bound by any confidentiality.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, who would be affected? The client and the counselor. So this is the decision that you are going to make that is going to have an effect on both people. Okay? So let me read my notes on this. Oftentimes in this field, when working with addicts, a counselor will hear this statement from the client. What do you know about addiction? How can you help me? Everything you've learned from a book. Okay? If the counselor is in fact themselves in recovery, sometimes for many years and doing well, that would make the client's perception false. Right? So you tell them, you tell them they're false in their perception. Okay? The therapist will know full well and firsthand the insanity of substance use disorder. The dilemma that requires a clinical decision is, should the therapist inform the client that their perception of the situation is false and untrue? Would the therapist self-disclosure clinically and therapeutically help the client move forward in their treatment? Or would it be detrimental to the client to share this information with them? Who would be affected by the decision of the counselor to self-disclose? And as we just discussed, both would be affected. Okay? Okay? So there would be some shift there. Now remember, for myself, for example, when I would be meeting with a client, patient, I would be sitting in my office and have my master's degree behind me and my bachelor's degree and my other awards, that I had gotten, and my, New York State credentials, certified alcoholism counselor, certified alcoholism instructor, and some other awards that I had behind me. So the patient sees me as this professionally, highly skilled, highly trained professional person. They're in my office, in my sandbox, in my playground, and that's what I present, So that's how they're going to see that, because that's all behind me, validating who I am. Okay? Therapeutic anonymity.
According to this perspective, the therapist is thought to act as a mirror on which the client's emotional reactions can be projected. If a therapist discloses personal information during therapy, this therapeutic anonymity could be disrupted. Further, it is argued that therapist self-disclosure may adversely affect treatment outcomes by exposing therapists' weaknesses and vulnerabilities, thereby undermining the client trust in the therapist.
And you're the professional, they're coming to you looking for help, okay? And so you gotta, that boundary is a lot of times been established already, and you know, what you might question, you know, what do you want to do, so it can be difficult,
Very.
Very, now I'm hearing very difficult. Okay, it can be very difficult, right. Okay, so in this setting, it will be necessary for the counselor to place the needs and care of the client above their own needs. Okay, so if it's going to be difficult, if there's going to be an emotional investment, okay, we are human beings, we have feelings, we have emotions, there can be counter-transference, but, you know, it is that we have to place the patient's needs above our own. Every time. Every single time. Okay?
Herein may lie the most difficult step in the decision-making process for a counselor who is in recovery and treating a newly recovering addict, either individually or in a group setting. Therapists and counselors are human beings and as such have feelings. These feelings might affect clinical judgment and reasoning with regard to setting boundaries so as to avoid the dual relationship. This is not to say that therapists and counselors cannot be genuine. Genuineness does not imply a high degree of self-disclosure, but a genuine presence in the therapeutic relationship. To paraphrase White, 2006, the use of self, using one's own personal and cultural experience to enhance the quality of service, has changed dramatically over the past 4 decades. In the paraprofessional era of addiction counseling in the early 1950s to early 1970s, disclosing one's status as a recovering person and using selected details of one's personal addiction and recovery history as a teaching intervention were among the most prominent counselor interventions. This dimension of the counselor role was based in great part on the role these dimensions played in successful sponsorship within Alcoholics Anonymous through the 1980s and 1990s. In present-day professional alcohol and substance abuse counseling, such self-disclosure has come to be seen as unprofessional and a sign of poor boundary management. Adopt the perspective of your client.
notes on this are, from the client's perspective, this writer would rather have their counselor in the role of a highly trained and highly educated professional. The client needs to see their counselor as a professional individual who has the knowledge and ability to help them recover. As the client, this writer would not wish to relate to their counselor as a peer and thereby damage the therapeutic relationship. Upon careful review of this decision-making process, this writer, me, would be very comfortable in making a decision not to self-disclose, and I would. I would be very comfortable making the decision if the situation was that I was in recovery, or whatever it was. Whatever it was. Whatever their issue is, I can help them with it, whether I've been there or not.
Surprise. I just want to discuss this a little bit more, this case study, because when I do this training with the group, we're able to discuss it a little bit more. So I just want to make sure that everything's covered. Pay attention. You're going to see questions about this case study on the quiz. I'm just going to refer to my notes. That first question, what were the mistakes? What mistakes were made? Do you see it? The clinical supervisor used an I statement, where she says, I got such a good feeling when I saw the relief come over the face of the client. She made it about herself. Counseling is not about the counselor feeling good about themselves. The supervisor was using, or did use, that situation for her own self-gratification. The second question, what opportunities were completely overlooked? Anything there? The clinical supervisor and the counselor did not address the client's feelings of shame and what was the root origin of that. The clinical supervisor actually rescued the client, and the root causes of her shame, probably family oriented, were never addressed, or actually completely overlooked. Additionally, the other two female clients, it doesn't matter female, male, it just happened to be a women's program, but the other two females were not worked with to address their finger pointing away from themselves. They were completely diverting attention away from their own issues by shaming their peer and gossiping about the counselor. So the other two clients pointing the finger, ha ha ha, you're not clean, you're still using methadone. And that was never addressed why they did that. What was their motivation to shame their peer? How could it have been handled differently without self-disclosing? Think about that. Now this has been done, and this is a real case study. A clinical supervisor, as part of my research into this training, actually did say that to me. But this next part that I'm telling you, my clinical team, and my former clinical supervisors and the people that I've worked with would have handled it the same way, and we have done many times. The counselor could have addressed the original client's issues of why she was feeling the shame, which we said. What was that shame? What was her feelings of shame about?
The clinical supervisor could have worked with the other two female clients to resolve their deflection and help them focus their attention back on their own recovery. We would have definitely have done. We definitely would have got the other two clients in and addressed their shaming and their finger pointing and their deflection. And what was their motivation behind that? And it's usually something about themselves. The supervisor and counselor could have got together with the three clients, and this we have definitely done. Get the three clients, in this case the three women, together in a room with myself or yourself as the counselor, and let's see if we can discuss what happened in this finger pointing and diverting and shaming. Would have brought them all in for a counseling session. Through role playing, the two clients would be allowed to feel the hurt, the shame the client felt, and empathize with her pain. So through role playing and through discussion and therapy, we would have given the other two clients, the two females, an opportunity to hear the feelings, the shame that was felt by the third client, in this case a female, and let them empathize with her and get those feelings out and ask what was their motivation for doing that. And when I say it's something in them, their family, something, and I'm just hypothesizing. She reminded me of my sister, she stole my boyfriend, or reminded me of my mother, or reminded me of something with my father, or some issues there. There's something there that, in this case, was completely overlooked. The three clients would gain a whole new perspective on their behavior and their relationship with each other. Now, this we have definitely done, where we get the clients together. If there's anything going on, I don't like him, he doesn't like me, we get them together and let's discuss what their feelings were behind that. Actually, I've done it with two counselors who didn't get along and didn't like each other. Let's sit down and talk about that. But in this case, we had an opportunity, and we've done this, where all three clients left the counseling session, left the office, and there was an alliance there. They were very supportive of each other. And how could they help each other? They really understood each other's feelings and became great friends, great allies. That's what could have been done. And in this case, that was completely overlooked. So in the future, if that arises, it's not necessary to self-disclose. Oh, I know what you're going through. I've been there too. When I was there, I felt this. And it's not, that's not counseling. Counselors don't talk like that. So we can help individuals with trauma, with any issue. We don't have to have had experienced it ourselves to help them resolve their feelings with that. As a counselor, I can help any individual with trauma, and I don't have to experience the trauma, have had experienced the trauma myself to help them process their feelings behind the trauma that happened in their past. We do that in counseling. Also, if you heard one of the other attendees at the video training shout it out. There's no confidentiality with the clients. And actually that gentleman is someone I know very well. He is a clinical supervisor now. He's actually a program director of a program. He shouted out there's no confidentiality amongst the clients. So what happened here, when you share something about yourself, especially self-disclosure that I'm in recovery too, I was an addict, I used. When you share that with a client, within an hour, every other Every other client in the program is going to know that. They're going to share. They're going to got that. That's what's going to tell that one, and they're going to tell this one, and everybody's going to know. And in this case, everybody knew, and the counselor didn't know that everybody knew. So that next morning in the group therapy session, the counselor's there sitting down, and the clients are kind of smiling and giggling to themselves because they knew that she was had been on methadone and was in recovery. And that's really where the damage is done, and it affects your ability to be an effective counselor and effectively treat people. That if you share something personal about yourself with one client, within an hour or two, every client in the program is going to know that information, and you're not going to know that they know, and it's going to affect your ability to be a good counselor for them. So just remember that there is no confidentiality amongst the clients. So I hope this little discussion was helpful, and this is the discussion we have when I do the training in person. And of course, if you have any questions, you can get in touch with me through the website, through the email, as part of this training program, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that come up. Okay, so let's move on with the presentation.
Clinicians repeatedly encounter dilemmas for which a clear professional clinical response can be elusive. Standards and procedures cannot take the place of an active, deliberative, and creative approach to fulfilling clinical responsibilities. Being prepared in advance and having a decision-making process in place is important because in the human services and healthcare industry, these situations may arise without warning and may need to be addressed fairly quickly. Therefore, know in advance that you are going to be challenged by your clients in regard to this question. It may come in the form of deflection, whereby the client is deflecting the attention away from themselves. Do not be fooled. Be prepared in advance with your answers as suggested in this presentation, and return the focus where it belongs, back onto the client.